Okay, I want to talk to you today about Crimea. Now the reason I want to talk about Crimea is because have been thinking a lot about cause and effect. Do we make decisions, or are decisions made for us by previous circumstance? I think in international affairs, there's a lot of reaction and reaction. We do something because something is done to us, and inevitably that's the case. There are governments that don't act in that way, that actually have strategic plan, a program. France, I would say, is one where France does what suits France and has a very clear vision. Iran is another, where they have committees that look at strategic issues in foreign policy and they work towards a strategy and along a specific line. But most nations, Britain, America, and all the major powers, just something happens, they hit back. You hit me, I hit you. You hit me, I hit you. You behave like this, I behave like this. If you affect my pride, I'm proud, and so on. This kind of thing, you see it all the time. And history is key in all of this. And when you look at the issue of Crimea, it's an exquisite example, one of many, but an exquisite example of the interplay of history. And you go back 150 years on this, at least. So let's just examine it. And it's interesting too in the context of Ukraine, because as you're aware, a comedian has just been elected as the president of Ukraine. And I'm not being sarcastic, I mean an actual comedian, a man who is a television personality, has won the election in Ukraine. Remarkable business, actually, after years of corruption and incompetent government stretching back decades, stretching back to the creation of the state anyway, as an independent nation. So it's an interesting issue, and at the heart of the whole conflict over Ukraine, Crimea, Russia. I mean, the Crimea issue is core. So where did that begin? Well, we need to go back a ways, because Russia's seizure in Ukraine of Crimea from Ukraine in 2014, which has created an international state of tension, this doesn't come out of a vacuum. It doesn't come out of nowhere. And we need to go back to more than 150 years, to 1852. The Western Allies, in the shape of Britain and France and Turkey, were about to go to war with Russia over Crimea. In Crimea. Well, the war was about to take place in Crimea. And you remember all the bloodshed. I mean, the charge of the Light Brigade, that vast, courageous effort, the thousands upon thousands of British dead, the Florence Nightingale in the Crimea, huge. It was the first really bloody war, and on a colossal scale. Over what? Why were we fighting in 1852 in Crimea? Well, the issue was that the Turks had given the French oversight of the Christian holy sites in Jerusalem. I mean, what were the Turks thinking of doing? They gave it was a Russian job to look after the Christians in Jerusalem, and indeed the wider Middle East. That historically it was what they'd done. It was their bag. It was their thing. But way back then, the Turks gave the little job. Turkish Ottoman Empire decided, I like the French, we'll give them this favor. They can look after the Christians in Jerusalem. Well, the Russians were very upset about the Jerusalem issue. Their fiefdom, how the Christians of Jerusalem now coming under French protection. So they had to punish the Turks for what they had done. And they did so by taking Romania from the Turks. Well, Romania, it was called something else back then. But anyway, that's the place they took. What was it called? Moldavia. It was the Turkish vassal state of Moldavia. The Russians just took it from the Turks to punish the Turks for their behavior, slighting them in Jerusalem. But Britain And France and Austria, the Western powers, didn't like this at all. They decided, well, we have to teach the Russians a lesson because they're getting too big for their boots. You know, I mean, taking Moldavia from the Turks, I don't suppose they really cared about the Turks, they just cared about Russia getting more powerful. So they said, we'll teach them a lesson. And they chose Crimea. They decided, this is Britain, and Austria and France decided, come on, we'll take Crimea from the Russians, so to punish them for taking Moldavia from the Turks, modern Romania. So we did that, and the loss of life, colossal. I mean, the soil of Crimea was soaked with the blood of British fighting men. But compare it to the Russian losses, it's as nothing. The Russian blood sacrificed in the soil of Crimea back in that very primitive, nasty war, the Crimean War. 500,000 Russian men died in that bloody little peninsula. 500,000. I mean, in those days that was a huge loss, huge really. And eventually, Crimea fell to the British, the Austrians, and the French. The Russians lost Crimea, and of course it fell to the Turks too were involved in the coalition, but they were really irrelevant. The British, the Russians, and the French took Crimea from the Russians, yes. So what then? Well, what then? Then we had the Treaty of Paris, and we gave it back to them. Because Russia ate a little tiny bit of humble pie, and they said, okay, the French can have authority to look after the Christians of Jerusalem. Oh. No, okay, you can have it back. Never mind the 500,000 Russian dead. Never mind the countless thousands of British, French, and Austrian dead, and Turkish dead in this little bloody peninsula. Never mind the charge of the Light Brigade. Never mind any of that. No, okay, here it is, back again. Treaty of Paris. You said, we'll look at the Christian community in Jerusalem is minuscule. This is all just a pride thing. Well, admittedly, the French, Russia gave up its status of protectors of the Christian in the Middle East as a whole, but it was the Jerusalem ones that counted. Jerusalem always matters. So these Crimeans, sorry about the dog, these Crimeans certainly, who are the people there? Now, we've had this war, Russians have got it back. Who are the people who lived in Crimea? Well, you probably know they were the Tatars. They weren't Russians, they weren't Ukrainians, they were the Tatars, a fiercely independent people. Trouble was, the Tatars backed the Germans in the Second World War. Very unwise thing to do. Stupid Tatars. And Stalin was never going to forgive them. And after 1945, we're coming way back forward now to 1945. After 1945, and the end of the Second World War, Stalin, he just got rid of a lot of them. He deported all the Tatars of Crimea almost to a man. I mean, there were maybe one or two left, but by and large, the vast bulk of them were deported off to Eastern Russia. I mean, it was pathetic. And so all they went, sent to Siberia. So now, and they were replaced by Russians, of course. So Crimea became a great Russian holiday resort. To this day, Russians go down there in their droves to places like Sevastopol, and you'll find it in Russian novels, people talking about, drinking coffee in Sevastopol, getting on trains to Sevastopol. It's a big holiday resort. They'd go yachting and so on. And anyways, so, and then we come fast forward to 1954. And so the story goes, Khrushchev got drunk one night, and he decided that he would just sign away Crimea and give it to the Ukrainians, Socialist Republic, Soviet Socialist Republic of Ukraine, or whatever the thing was then. It didn't matter, I suppose, because the Soviet Union was a big bloc, and whether you transferred something internally was irrelevant. Why did Khrushchev do this? Actually, it wasn't because he was drunk. It was a shrewd political move. He needed Ukrainian support in some internal power play and then ongoing in the Soviet Union. So he did that. And with the collapse of the Soviet Union, however, Ukraine got its independence. And suddenly, Crimea was outside of the Russian bloc. Wow. And there were lots of grumpy people in Crimea because a lot of them were Russian, I remember. And their loyalty was to Russia. In due course, a pro-Western president was elected. Viktor Andreev, I can't pronounce these names very well, Andriovich Yushchenko was elected in 2004. So this pro-Western president, Viktor Yushchenko, he did okay for a while, but he lost his popularity. Corruption, that kind of thing, and mismanagement. So in 2010, Yushchenko was voted out, and a pro-Russian president was elected, Viktor Fedorovich Yanukovych. Okay, so now we've lost Yushchenko, pro-Western. We've got Yanukovych, pro-Russian, democratically elected, you understand, in Ukraine. But remember, there are a lot of Russians in Ukraine, and some of the non-Russians were grumpy with Yushchenko for other reasons, just because of his corruption and incompetence. So Yanukovych was elected. He forged ties with Russia and cut ties with Europe. Well, he'd be expected to, wouldn't he? It's the thing you do if you're pro-Russian. So he'd been voted in democratically. But the people in Kiev, some of them, were a bit liberal, a bit besotted, not unlike the country people. They were a bit besotted with the West and the whole Western idea. And they rose up in numbers in the streets of Kiev and chucked Yanukovych out, thrown out. Never mind he's democratically elected. Chunk, go. We don't like you, Yanukovych. And maybe they had a point. But Putin was annoyed. Well, he would be, wouldn't he? Grumpy old Putin. And so he regarded this as his opportunity to grab back Crimea for Russia, partly to punish Ukraine, and he sort of gerrymandered. Well, he didn't gerrymander anything. He allowed he encouraged a referendum to be held in Crimea on whether the Crimeans wanted to be Russian or not. Well, Crimeans are Russian these days, by and large. So, of course, they voted to go with Russia. They would, wouldn't they? What do they want to be? Offer people these referenda, and they can be very messy. The outcomes are never satisfactory to everybody. South Sudan, Scotland, whatever, there are always people who are grumpy in referendums. Look at Brexit. Anyway, So it was very upsetting. The Crimeans voted to go with Russia. And Russia just simply, never mind international law, it just took Crimea. And the story doesn't end. Subsequently, Putin then decided to build a bridge from Crimea to Russia. What does that matter? Well, the northern Ukrainian ports are all in this up in this strait, up in the Sea of Marmara, or whatever the damn thing is called. And you can't you have to go round to get to them. And suddenly they're all landlocked. You can't get the merchant ships up there because Putin built the bridge too low. I mean, probably being grumpy, or maybe not thinking, but I think he's probably just being grumpy. He built the bridge too low to allow merchant ships underneath it, so he virtually, by default, blockaded the ports in northern Ukraine. 3 merchant ships did try to go through, which were just low enough to get under the bridge, but Putin seized them. On what grounds, God knows, but he seized them. So that was the end of that. And all these North Ukrainian ports were suddenly no longer ports for anybody. a bit mean and petty of Putin, has to be said. So that didn't help matters. So we needed some retaliation, tit for tat. What are we going to do? Back to religion. The Ukrainian Church, then the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, became the vehicle for Ukrainian nationalism and to strike a blow at Russia. So, for the first time in 400 years, the Ukrainian Orthodox Church became independent of the Muscovite Patriarchal Authority on 6th of January of this year. We get our own back, see? I mean, so more than 150 years of squabbles over Crimea, all dating back to 1852 with a religious squabble over over defending the Christians of Jerusalem, and now it comes full circle when we punish the Russians with by making the Ukrainian Orthodox, well, we don't, but the Ukrainians do, by making the Ukrainian Orthodox Church independent of Moscow. That's one little way we can upset them. But it's interesting, and it's the temptation to view these things out of context, to view the Crimea issue out of context, to view anything out of context, Libya, Iraq, Syria, Afghanistan, because we do, don't we? We don't look at the history. But everything has a cause. Well, most things has a cause. Most international issues have a cause. And that cause is mostly pride-driven. Lord Acton had a maxim, didn't he? Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Similarly, powerlessness corrupts, and absolute powerlessness corrupts absolutely. Whether people, it's all down to pride. All international relations are based on pride, in my view. But understanding the historical context is vital, and understanding that there is history in every situation. We don't do that enough. If we learn the lessons of history, we might be able to break the mold. And we can break the mold if we choose not to react. Atrocity breeds atrocity, breeds atrocity, breeds atrocity. If for once we say, hold up, I won't do this, I won't react, then we build peace. And that's the only way we can do it.